we're going to let people in from the sort of lobby as they arrive. So excuse the sort of ding dong doorbells as they come in. We are going to record this meeting so that we can host it on our website and perhaps our YouTube channel, just for others to check in and have a look back, and particularly for those that can't make it. My name's Gary Mitchell. I'm the Chief Executive for the charity across the UK, but I'm based in the Wales team. We've got Steve with us, who's also based in Wales, down in Carmarthenshire, and is working on our partnership with Boyd Cigar Food and the Bremenda ESAF project, and sort of managing the machinery ring that we host down there. I don't know if we've got any specific seed saving tools in either of the machinery rings we help host, but anyway, that's a question for us internally to look at and consider what tools might be of use to some of our members. What we would ask you to do is to introduce yourself in the chat. Just say, hi, I'm whoever, where you're based, and helpful to perhaps just give us a hint if you do any seed saving or not, a yes or a no, or interested, done lots, done a little, or like me, tried it, not very good at it, need to learn more. Hence, being here is really helpful. I'm pleased to say I've known Sue for a lovely number of years. We live in quite close proximity, which is lovely, and come across Sue's work in a number of different settings, which is fantastic. And she's been a supporter of us at Social Farms and Gardens for many years, and likewise we've supported some of the projects that Sue's involved in. She's obviously a fantastic author. I'm not a big reader, but you don't have to be to look and admire some of Sue's books. Very well illustrated as well, and easy reads, if you like. So got all of that technical detail and the information you need, but stuff that doesn't scare you off always appeals to me. So I'm sure Sue will hopefully give herself a little bit of a plug around those as well. So we'd ask you to either hold on to your questions, or by all means post them into the chat as they come into your head, and we'll allow Sue to sort of run through the presentation, and we'll save plenty of time towards the end to bring people in. You can either ask it in person, or we'll try and pick it up from the chat. But please do sort of keep that chat flowing. We'll let Sue run through the presentation, and between Steve and I, we'll do our best to sort of manage that. But if you've got a question, stick your hand up. But if you could keep on mute, that just helps us get through it all. And if we hear a bit of background noise and you haven't caught it up, we might rudely mute you from our end, if that's okay. So I will pass over to you, Sue. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us this presentation today.
Okay, thank you, Gary. You can hear me all right? Yeah. See everything all right? Good. Well, I can see from the chat that a lot of you are keen gardeners, and some of you have done a bit of seed saving. But if you're anything like me at this time of year, you'll be bombarded by the seed companies with new catalogues and new varieties, and very tempting they are too. But I don't know whether you've ever stopped to think where the seeds inside the packets come from. Because in fact, hardly any of the vegetable seed that's sold in the UK, or any seed, is produced in the UK. It nearly all comes from abroad. Quite a lot of it from China, some from India, some from Eastern Europe, quite a lot from Eastern Europe, New Zealand, perhaps southern Italy, the nearest. So, and what's more, the new varieties that you kind of see them promoting are nearly all, they're bred for an international market. They're bred for commercial growers who grow for the supermarkets. Oh. My slide's not moving down.
It's
Why is that?
Not moved for us yet, Sue, either. So we can still see your opening slide.
That's a bit odd. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Why was that so slow?
Yeah.
Yeah. So increasingly you're getting large companies on a global scale. I know you can't see the detail here, but on a kind of global scale, 4 seed companies dominate most of the global seed trade, and they actually happen to be the chemical companies too. But you can see the general picture here. You might think that there's lots of small seed companies, but in fact, they're all part of bigger umbrella companies. And or for example, just to think of the garden seed companies, the major garden seed companies in the UK, who you might be familiar with, perhaps Thompson and Morgan, Suttons, Dobies, Johnsons, Browns, Fothergills, I said Fothergills, the Organic Garden Catalogue, they're all one company. So you might think you're getting a lot of choice, but in fact you're not. And that's not good for food security. The whole picture isn't good for food security. I mean, it's partly just because of the supply of seed, which can easily be interrupted by the weather or wars or pandemics or politics, as we've seen in the past. But it's also the lack of crop diversity. The crop biodiversity is being lost because you're losing all the local varieties that the small seed companies used to steward. Again, you probably can't see the detail here, but this just gives you an idea of the loss of crop biodiversity in the last century. In 1900, there were a couple of hundred varieties of lettuce and squash and radish. And then by the end of the century, this has dwindled down to a couple of dozen. So what can you do about it? Well, if you really don't want to risk losing your favorite varieties, then obviously saving your own seed is one of the best methods. It also saves you money. Seeds aren't cheap nowadays. They seem to be getting more and more expensive. But you do get good quality seed. And I noticed that some of you in the chat said that you do quite a lot of seed saving. And I think you'll have probably noticed if you save your own seed, how good the germination is. And that's probably just because it's fresh. You keep it in good conditions. But also, if you save the same variety over several generations in your garden, it gradually gets adapted to your site. And there's quite a few reasons for this, but the seeds kind of just feel at home, really, basically. And also, I think it's really interesting, really enjoyable. This is so the great thing about saving vegetable seeds is that you see some of the flowers that you don't normally see of some of the biennial vegetables like carrots. This is carrot. It's one of my favorites, nice lacy flowers. And you don't see any of that because often with biennial vegetables, you've eaten them by the time they get to that stage. And then you get some wonderful colors. I don't know whether, I'm sure some of you probably recognize the one on the left. That's chicory, because you kind of see wild chicory sometimes, beautiful blue flowers. And the one on the right, salsify, and that again it's a beautiful flower. And things like that, and particularly the carrots and the parsnips, they attract lots of insects too, lots of pollinators. Then there's beetroot, I think, on the left. I think someone's growing that in their garden. It can be really a magnificent plant. And on the right, that's a leek. And when you think of some of the ornamental alliums, I think that leeks and onions can often match them. And then there's all the wonderful shapes and colours and sizes of the heritage French beans, which I'm sure quite a few of you are familiar with. They're just so lovely, so satisfying to collect and clean. So just get rid of this. I got some thing on my screen. I can't see. Oh. Anyway, so I hope that perhaps I've persuaded you a bit that you should start to save some seed, and also those of you that are seed saving already, that perhaps you should, kind of branch out and try a bit more. But there are some tips that can really help to give you good results. you could go out in the autumn, you know, last month, September, October, and I'm sure some of you do. If you're clearing peas and beans, you collect some of the seeds that haven't been harvested, and that can work, but but really you need to plan in advance if you're going to be sure of getting good results. One of the main reasons for this is that that you might get cross-pollination, and that might mean your seed might not come true to type. There's quite a lot of seed-saving terminology, but that just means that the seed you collect when you sow it the next year, it won't produce you won't produce plants that look like the parents if you get something completely different to what you're expecting. And that's because foreign pollen from another variety of the same species is carried by insects or the wind, and contaminates the variety that you're trying to save. So you don't always have to worry about that. I mean, that's a big factor in seed saving, but there's crops that you don't have to worry about that. And one is peas, because if you can see the kind of male and female parts of the flower are right inside these enclosed petals. It's called the keel. And so pollination of peas happens within the flower, within the male and female parts. They transfer the pollen before the flower even opens, so no insects can get a look in. And tomatoes are just about the same. Most varieties of tomatoes, because the female parts of the flower are right down in that little cone there, and the male parts of the flower that produce the pollen are the cone that's surrounding it. So pollen's just transferred again before any insects can get in. So you don't always have to worry about pollination, but on the other end of the scale, there are crops which are very promiscuous. They strongly cross-pollinate. So brassicas, for example, runner beans, beetroot, squashes, and they all, unless you can separate them from other varieties of the same species, then you're likely to get bad results. And separation, the easiest way to separate them is only to grow one variety. And I know that's probably not easy in a lot of community garden situations. And it also means, you know, knowing what your neighbour's growing sometimes, and you can think how far a bee can fly. Well, probably a mile, but half a mile is probably a distance where you're quite likely to get cross-pollination. And wind pollinated things like beetroot, the pollen can travel even further. So it's not always easy. I think one of the easiest ways of kind of growing runner beans and trying to save your own seed is probably to offer all your neighbors seed, so they're growing the same variety. And this is what can happen with squashes. All those squashes on the right there came from seed that was produced that came from one squash the previous year. So I think it was an orange squash, probably more like that one, round orange squash, and it produced the seed produced ones that were kind of tear-shaped and dark green, and small and tear-shaped and all sorts. And that's all very well, but if they taste all right, but there's a good chance that the flesh might be watery, and it might even be bitter. And with runner beans, you can often get good results if you do have neighbours with different varieties. But if you're trying to save seed of a white flowered runner bean, you'll often find that the flowers kind of turn out red, and often the beans start to get not nice, long and tender, you'll start to get beans that are short and tough. And the other thing I would caution against is saving seed from supermarket tomatoes or supermarket peppers or carrots, because they almost certainly will be grown from F1 hybrids, and F1 hybrids are bred in a different way. You get kind of two inbred lines of parent plants, with some good characteristics but some bad characteristics, and they cross those every time that they want to produce seed, so the seed won't come true to type. If you're going to save seed, you need to look for what's called open pollinated varieties. The other reason for planning in advance for saving seed is that you really need to watch it as it grows. You definitely don't want any diseased plants or plants that aren't vigorous to contribute to your seed crop, because what you're trying to do is to improve the variety, or you're trying to get a healthy, vigorous plants the following year. And some diseases are actually seed-borne. I don't know whether any of you recognize this. I hope you don't, actually. That's cucumber mosaic virus, which is which can affect all the cucurbits, can affect, as well as cucumbers. You often see it on courgettes and squashes, and I think on some ornamentals too. I think petunias or something like that. And anyway, that's seed-borne, that disease. And there's another disease of French beans, halo blight, which is a common disease, which is seed-borne. So you certainly need to watch your crop as it grows during the summer, and to pull out anything that doesn't look healthy. The other thing you want to do is to pull out anything that isn't true to type. This is a good example down the bottom left here. That's yellow stem chard. So if you're going to save a variety of yellow stem chard, obviously you don't want that one there that's got white stems. So that's a very obvious thing. So you mark that and take it out at the end of the season. And that's called roguing. That's another kind of seed serving term. With biennials, with root crops or bulbs like onions that don't flower till the following year, one of the best times to rogue them is at the end of the first year in the autumn. So you often will dig up your main crop carrots and store them for the winter in leaf mold or something. Well, if you're doing that you want to pick out the best varieties, the best roots, for seed saving, the best looking roots, and then you could just store them like you would an edible crop, and then in the following year you can replant them. The other reason for thinking in advance, if you're wanting to save seed, is that seed crops often take longer to mature than a crop just grown to eat. So especially with the half-hardy crops like courgettes and beans and French and runner beans, you want to start them off as early as you can in pots inside if you can. And then you need to give them time to mature at the end of the season. I think it's always a kind of patience is the key when it comes to harvesting a seed crop. With this, you probably hardly recognize what that is. That's a cucumber, and it doesn't look very nice or edible at all. You have to wait until the cucumber gets far way past the edible stage till it till it turns yellow, gets fat and soft, and and that by that time the seed is mature, and all that takes time, probably 6 to 8 weeks at least, past the edible stage, maybe 2 or 3 months. And crops that form in pods or seed pods, you should leave them on the plant as long as possible, really. They not only have to kind of swell and be bean sized, but the pods have to change color. The pods have to be at least leathery. I mean, the best thing is if you can leave them on the plant until they're actually crackling and until they're actually kind of rustling like this. But obviously in Wales we get rain, we get mice, and it's not always possible to leave them on right till the end. But what I've done here, you can see I've pulled up the plant's dwarf French beans by their roots and hung them up in a dry, airy place in the polytunnel. So it's not always the case. I mean, sometimes, so with some crops, tomatoes, peppers, the seed is mature when the fruit is ready to eat. So that's great. And so you can kind of see a pattern here. Tomatoes are going to be easy to save because they don't cross-pollinate, and you know where you are. That if you can grow a tomato to eat, then you can grow it for seed. And the best thing is with both tomatoes and peppers is that you can save the seed, and then you can cook with the tomato and the pepper. You're not actually losing your crops. So they're great crops to start with. Although peppers can cross-pollinate a bit with chilies, but you don't have to have them way apart. You can just have them in another greenhouse or something. They're not that promiscuous. And also seed crops take up more room perhaps than you might think. I don't know whether anybody recognizes that on the left. It starts with a tiny little radish root, and by the time it's set pods, it's about 3 foot tall and definitely needs staking, not just canes and string. I've got a tree stake in there. And brassicas, well, you can see this kale is way above head height here. So then they can easily spread both upwards and outwards. And with these dry seeded crops, you want to also leave them plenty of room so that the air can get between them, so that they help to dry. So you probably need to think about what you're going to grow for seed when you're crop planning, because you might not be able to get the same rotation as you would without. You wouldn't be able to perhaps get another crop in the ground after your radishes, which is what you would normally do. That's just some other examples of that on the left. That's lettuce, and they can produce big branching plants too. And you can see I've got each one staked with the cane there, and that's leeks, I think. Yeah, so a clever idea, just to put some wide mesh netting over the whole bed, and then the seeds grow up through it. But that's not always the case. Some crops, you just grow them as you would grow to eat, and you don't need to worry about extra space. So those tomatoes there, just in little raised beds, and that's plenty 6 plants, plenty for saving seed. And runner beans, just the same spacing will be absolutely fine, although you will have to leave them on at the end of the season, so it's not space but just time with runner beans. So this is a bit of a pattern here. So the crops that I would recommend you starting with are ones that that self-pollinate, like peas. And peas are also great because they're pretty hardy. You can start them off at the end of the season, at the beginning. You can start them off even outdoors at the beginning of the season, and they'll mature at in probably July, August, when it's still fine and dry, and you don't have any trouble drying them on the plant. So peas are a great one to start with. French beans, they're half hardy, so they take a little bit more cosseting, and they can cross-pollinate if you grow them close together. But if you've got another tall crop in between, or grow them kind of 3 meters, 6 meters apart, then you shouldn't have any problems. So then you have to, once you've got past the edible stage, you probably have to wait another 6 weeks before they're dry enough or mature enough to even think about seed saving. Tomatoes, nearly all varieties of tomatoes self-pollinate. There's some, those little tiny little currant tomatoes, they're smaller than cherry tomatoes. I don't know whether any of you have ever grown those, but they can cross because their stigma, I showed you that little cone earlier, their stigma kind of pokes out the end, and you can see that with a hand lens. But most tomatoes that you grow won't easily cross-pollinate. So if you and as I said before, the seed is mature when the tomato is ready to eat. So if you can grow a tomato to eat, then you can save the seed. And the other thing that I'm sure some of you have saved seed from it is the baby leaf salads, such as rocket, cress, coriander. I mean, they would cross if you had 2 varieties of rocket, or you do get varieties of rocket, but really if you're growing them as a baby leaf, you're probably not too bothered about that. So that's a great crop to save seed too, because you do need lots of seed if you're growing baby leaf salads or things like coriander. So it's a very worthwhile, very kind of cost-effective thing to save seed. And I'm sure a lot of you have had hardy annual flowers self-seed in the garden, so they're another good crop. So although you're unlikely to be able to save seed of all the crops that you want, but that's the great thing about seed saving. That seeds are almost kind of meant for sharing, because you get so many often. You get so many of one thing, but you can't grow everything because they might cross-pollinate. So it's just such an obvious idea to share with other gardens, or to join one of the seed libraries. I mean, Garden Organics Heritage Seed Library is the most well known, but there are local seed libraries. I know that there's well-established one at Lampeter in Wales. You probably know more in your area, and often you get seed swaps in the spring. But then there's also there are a lot more local seed companies actually popping up now. And we're lucky in Wales that we've got Real Seeds there. I'm sure some of you have bought seeds from Real Seeds. They're based down in Pembrokeshire. They don't grow all their own seed. Probably about 50% is grown by them or contracted to other market growers. But where they do import seed, they import it. They don't buy it on the wholesale market. They buy it from other small seed companies in Germany or the States or other places where they perhaps can produce seed more easily because of the weather, but they're still small local seed companies. The seed company I'm involved in is the Wales Seed Hub, and we produce all our own seed in Wales, and that's kind of that's why we're set up. We want to produce varieties that do well in the Welsh climate, and we've got some heritage varieties, Welsh heritage varieties, and if anybody has got any more information about Welsh heritage varieties, we'd be pleased to know. And then there's other ones that are springing up more recently. Vital Seeds down in Devon, they produce a lot of their own seed. Winnow Farm, they concentrate mostly on flowers, but they're also down in the southwest. And then there's Seeds of Scotland. They're doing the same as us in the Wales Seed Hub. They're producing all their seeds within Scotland and trying to find varieties that really do well there. So the one thing I haven't really covered is how to dry and clean seed, and that's because really it's something that's best demonstrated. But you reminded me, Gary, when you said about the tools and the tool ring, that really you don't need a lot of equipment in order to clean seed. Just kind of sieves and a hairdryer or things to winnow and clean the seed is quite adequate. And it's actually quite important to clean seed because it keeps much better if you can clean it. And also some of the chaff can carry over disease more than the seed itself. Sorry. But if the ideal thing would be to organise some kind of the Wales Seed Hub members. We often do seed cleaning demonstrations kind of in August or early September when there's plenty of seed available, and if anybody's interested in us doing that at a garden, I'm sure we'd be very pleased to do that. So yeah, so that's just a bit of information about the Wales Seed Hub and where you can contact us. So yeah, so I'm sure there's lots of questions, Gary, because
Thank you very much, Sue. It's almost made me reminisce about my father was a grower for most of my life, gardener, grower, and saved everything almost, so that the sheds were always full of jam jars of various coloured, sized seeds. I never quite knew what was in them, but he clearly did, and he always grew pretty impressive crops to feed us and feed friends and neighbours and stuff. But I do feel we've moved away from that probably over a generation. Convenience, all those sorts of things, isn't it? But it's lovely to see that sort of live and enthusiasm for saving our own again. I'm sure it's been there in many corners for a long time as well, but I have seen it more prominent, I suppose, more publicly accessible, which is brilliant. The championing of some of those traditional local seed companies that you said is great. They've been at it for years, banging the same drum, continuing to do it, and I think that eventually filters down to us. So well done for you and others in all of that work and bringing it to us. There are some questions. We'll run through those in a minute. I was just going to take a slight chair's prerogative for a second. And obviously, we as an organisation don't just focus on horticulture. And Sue talked about sort of garden seeds and things like that. And I've noticed a few of you out there doing it in terms of wildflower meadows and sort of more ornamental, that would be the wrong word, but non-edible seed-saving crops as well. And that's definitely something that I see in my work becoming more prevalent. So land managers, if you like, sustainable land managers, really worrying about where their seed heritage is coming from for some of their biodiversity gain projects, things like that. And there's a lot of companies now, and probably a very similar mix to the vegetable seeds, isn't there, Sue? I'm sure that some of it has really good provenance and heritage and you can trace it all the way back, and others might be well labelled and branded but could come from anywhere. And the same with vegetables, really, those flowering seeds like certain types of conditions and certain climates and certain soils and things like that. So it's worth doing your homework a bit. But I had the pleasure of visiting a National Trust farm a couple of months ago down in South Powys, so in almost South Wales, but let's say South Mid Wales, and they've actually purchased a drying facility or built their own drying facility, particularly for hay meadow type seeds. It's relatively sizable. It's got loads more capacity than seeds that they're growing, and they do offer effectively use of it. So they want to use it for their own crops and to spread around their own estate, which is great, but they will allow others to potentially come in and use it. But then obviously you've got that bit of cross-pollination-y type stuff, not so much for leftover seeds, how well is it cleaned down, how much of a beige you get, etc., etc. But it's worth just putting out there that there are some of those larger scale facilities out there, and some of those organisations like National Trust potentially trading in seeds as well now. So thank you, Sue. So I'm going to, between Steve and I, we'll run through a few of the questions, but very happy for people to unmute themselves, put their hand up and get ready to answer questions or ask them. So Caroline, you've got a question in there. I don't know, or is it Caroline? No, sorry. Yeah, it is Caroline. Do you want to ask your question yourself, or would you like us to do it? Happy either way. Okay, I'll ask it, Caroline. But yeah, go on. I can see you off mute. That's fine. Go for it.
Oh, sorry, it was just a quick one. I just heard at some point the problem with these toxic squashes, and I just wonder if that is when they cross-pollinate with gourds, and can we, if so, can we try and prevent all our neighbours growing gourds? It would be very helpful. That was just a quickie. Thank you.
Yeah, there's been some more recent publicity. I just caught it on the Archers the other day. Did anybody hear that somebody tried, the vicar ate a poisoned kind of bitter courgette or something ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, because a couple of years ago Fothergills had to withdraw all their courgette seeds because they were producing bitter courgettes which made people ill, and that definitely was cross-pollination, probably with a wild gourd, and that can happen. Yeah, with the cucurbits, courgettes and summer squashes, which are probably the gourds, are almost certainly the same species. It's the actual species that you need to consider when you're thinking about cross-pollination. So courgettes won't always cross-pollinate with pumpkins or winter squashes because they can be different species, but it's a case where the culinary properties don't kind of necessarily accord with what the species actually is. So you'd probably need to look on the seed packet, and even then you might not believe it. So yeah, but there is a way of isolating your squashes because they've got such big flowers. I don't know whether any of you have ever seen this. You can bag the flowers, put a not a polythene bag, but a muslin bag, or just tape the flowers shut with masking tape. And before they open, don't let them open, and then you can actually hand pollinate them and then tape them up or bag them again so that you don't get any crossing. It's quite easy to do because the flowers are so big and on a small scale. It's probably worth doing.
Great, thank you. Yvonne and Lucy, you put a question in there. Would you like to ask it yourselves?
Hello, yeah. So we work in a botanic garden, and so a lot of everything that comes in and out has to be like biosecure, which is something that we're still getting our heads around because they've introduced new rules recently. So obviously with plants, we bring them in and we'd quarantine them and everything. So I just wondered if there's anything regarding sharing seeds that you'd have to consider if you're thinking about that.
Yeah, well, that's quite a difficult one. I mean, obviously, if you're going to a seed swap or just a seed library, then you're relying on people just having healthy seed, and you can't really. I mean, as a seed company, the Wales Seed Hub, we're registered with APA, and like you, we've got lots of rules and regulations. They come and they test they take seed away for testing. They take leaf tests of all the tomatoes and peppers because there's a lot of virus diseases that could affect commercial crops. So yeah, I think probably for security, you probably wouldn't be encouraged to get seed from seed swaps and other people unless you were really sure where they came from. I'm not sure whether you could grow them in isolation and then test them. You could have the seed tested by a lab, yeah, which is expensive. They can test for viruses.
Thank you. Yeah, great question, and may not have been given a full answer, but I think it gives us another understanding of different areas of concern, some of our member sites and stuff. So thank you, Lucy and Yvonne. There's one in there from me. That was just, will you be at the Wales Real Food and Farming Conference again this year, or any upcoming conferences, Sue, where you might demonstrate some of the kit that you use, some of that sort of basic homegrown DIY stuff for seed saving, and give people a chance to chat and meet you in person?
Yeah, we are at the Welsh Real Food and Farming Conference. Yeah, we're having a stall with seeds for sale. I don't think they'll be giving us enough space to do any demonstrations. I mean, we have been asked to do demonstrations there in the past, which we have done, but we haven't been asked this year to do any seed demonstrations, unfortunately. But yeah, we will be there with seeds and to chat to.
Great, thank you. I know obviously people from all over the UK here, but can certainly recognise a few of our Welsh member sites and Welsh members and stuff, and we'll have a reasonable presence ourselves there this year. We've got a small stand as well, so yeah, come and say hello to both of us and others there if you're attending. There's one, yeah, Helen will put the dates in the chat for that as well, definitely. I should have said we'll share Sue's presentation via your emails when you registered, if that's okay. So we've got it on a PDF already from Sue. That's great. So we'll whiz that round to you as well, and we'll probably share the link back to the recording somehow. Maggie or somebody else will do that, and then if you want to pass that on for others, please do. There's a question there from Helen. Would you like to ask your question, Helen?
Hi, yes, thank you. Yeah, it's just I'm taking part in a local meadow generation or regeneration project, and the idea is to keep wildflower seeds that thrive in this area local, so minimize the carbon footprints, and hopefully, that's not going to turn out to be a biosecurity issue. One of the things that I have been told about this is that these seeds may only be viable for a certain period of time. So my question is, with the horrendous, horrible weather that we've been having recently, whether the seeds are only viable if you don't plant all of them now, shall we say, they might risk getting blown away. Are they only viable for a certain period of time, or is it only certain species that are only viable for a finite period before planting? Thank you.
So are you talking about wildflower seeds?
So wildflower seeds, but we're also looking to plant to create a planting area as well with members of the local community who are going to be planting vegetables and so on. So it would be different areas of the project. So that's what I'm talking about, really.
Okay, yeah. So, well, wildflower seeds are different in that some of them definitely need sowing the year that they seed, so that they can get a cold period over winter. They won't, if you sow them in the spring, keep them inside and then sow them in the spring, often you don't get very good germination because they need the cold to germinate. I don't know whether that helps
Yes,
what you're saying.
yeah.
If you're buying in wildflower seed, I mean, it should say there's lots of different mixtures, but it should say on the packet. But I would for a lot of things like can't think of an example. Well, just poppies, for example, or yellow rattle or something like that.
Yeah.
Or cowslips, definitely. They need a cold. They need to be in the ground and have a cold period before they'll germinate.
So is that anything down to, say, 1 degree Celsius?
It depends. It's not just the coldness. It's the how long the cold goes on for. It's a kind of equation between for a 1 degree for a long time or minus something for a short time. It's not an easy equation.
Okay.
But I mean, that can be of the problem with global warming, actually. I mean, you might not get enough cold during winter for some of these things.
That vernalization period. Okay, thank you, Sue.
I mean, with
Definitely.
vegetables,
Sorry, I was going to say, it was one thing I learned from the National Trust visit that if they're doing effectively green hay cuts to deposit seed everywhere else, they cut it and spread it within the same day. So they move it from farm to farm and site to site within the same day to ensure that it lands where it needs to land and stays there for the winter season. So it was relatively time critical for them. But what they did do, if they'd got wider harvests over that, they would dry to the best of their ability, get the moisture levels right down and cool store. So I don't know if that makes a difference. It's artificially cooling it, isn't it? But I guess that's how they were trying to get around it.
Yeah, different approaches. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Helen. There was another question there from Emily. Do you want to ask your one, Emily?
Hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'm Emily from Holyhead Community Farm, Sheffield. I'm having a lot of fun saving seeds. I've only been doing it for the last couple of years, but it seems to be going really well. Like everything I try and save and plant has been germinating really well. In fact, very vigorously compared to shop bought seeds. But I don't feel we're doing it very perfectly. We are a community farm, so we tend to rely on free seed, magazine seeds, and collected seeds. So I do tend to just sort of work with what I've got. So often that's like, maybe not a very vigorous plant. This year we've had, it was quite exciting. I had melons for the first time and they grew, but they were pretty small. But I've kept the seed anyway. They did produce full-size seeds. And I was just thinking, how important is it to discard seed from plants that aren't very vigorous, or is it just worth giving it a go and seeing if you can nurture the child plants to be a bit healthier and just sort of build on your varieties that way?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you haven't got many plants and one's not vigorous, then something is better than nothing. I guess I was just. But if something's really diseased, then I would definitely not keep it. There's it's interesting this idea of how seeds, how varieties kind of adapt to your garden, and there's two kind of reasons really. Well, one is kind of just survival of the fittest, really. So if you think about it, the best plants will produce the most seed. So really, you're automatically saving seed. Your plant, your strain is automatically getting better because you'll get more seeds every year. You'll get more seeds from the best plants, and that can happen. There's something called epigenetics, which means that it can actually happen much quicker than you would expect from a kind of a real genetic change. But the other thing is that we're used to thinking about seeds carrying disease, and I've been talking about it. Seeds carrying viruses, seeds carrying bacteria, and we've only just begun to realize that seeds we've just realized that if seeds can carry bad microorganisms, they can also carry good ones. and actually seeds have got their own kind of microbiome, so which is associated to with where they're growing. So if you plant a seed from your own garden, it's really got a head start because it kind of remembers where it's been growing. So really, in answer to your question, yeah, I mean, you're playing about, and it's great, and you'll get hooked. I mean, what I was trying to do is just to kind of make you aware of how you can get better seed if you just do a few things differently.
Okay. Thank you.
Gary, I think you're on
Gary,
mute.
you're muted.
Sorry, chatting away. Little one came in to disturb me, so I thought, oh, I'd better turn off, see what he wants. He doesn't want anything, so he's gone. I left myself on mute. Yeah, I was saying, if any final questions, do put them in the chat or put your hand up if you want to ask one in the final few minutes. But I was just reflecting on, several people have mentioned them in here, the seedling swaps, seed swaps that we see popping up all over the country, which are fantastic little social events as well, but they do get people enthused about, oh, I haven't seen that one before, oh, give it a go, it hasn't really cost me anything, I've made a small donation or whatever. And we certainly brought home some weird and wonderful stuff in the past, including, remembering a long time back now, but some tobacco seeds that grew really well in our damp, wet climate. Maybe not so good for eating, but they were amazing plants in general terms of just the size they grew to and stuff. So very much encourage our members and groups and people that we work with to put small events on like that and put them on our platforms. We've got sort of busy interactive Facebook groups pages, sort of a Facebook page for the whole of the UK, but we're across Instagram and LinkedIn and those other spaces as well, as you'd expect. So share your events with us and we'll help you find your communities that perhaps haven't heard of you before, but we know that many of them operate on a really good local basis, and local towns coordinate with each other so that they don't put them on the same weekend, which is great. So really good. I had one final question, perhaps, Sue, in terms of quite a lot of the work, sadly, that we help some of our member sites, particularly in Wales, but other industrial areas as well, is sort of land contamination issues. So trying to avoid contaminated soils for our crops, thinking very much more normally on the edible side of it. But is there any data or science for seeds that we could or should worry about, or can we ignore the fact that seeds don't actually worry too much about putting contaminants into the seeds? So I would imagine it would be very small levels anyway, but I'm just wondering, some of the contaminants harm the seeds anyway, so you get deformed, pretty ugly looking veg that you might not want to eat. But is there anything that you're aware of in terms of research around that? What we are seeing is some crops now are really resilient to it and filter out the contaminants, which is great. And we've got some sites growing specific crops to clean the soils up, which is fantastic. But I wasn't sure if there was any potential impact on seeds. I guess we try and encourage growing in good, clean soil anyway, so less of an issue.
Yes, that's a good question. I'll keep a lookout for anything. Not as far as I know. I mean, obviously, there's research on what different nutrients in the soil affect the seed production, but I don't know is the answer. Yeah, it's a good question.
I think it's something we're learning about a bit more as we try and help more sites that are in these more contaminated areas, but in general principles, we just say try and bring your good clean soil in and grow on top of it and create those barriers. But that's brilliant.
I should
like
just
thank
say,
you all.
Gary, about the equipment for seed cleaning. There's two things that you do, and one is to separate seeds by size, and that means sieving them, and the other is to separate seed by weight, which means winnowing them. You know, where traditionally you would throw seed up in the air and let the wind current take it. But it's better to use a hairdryer. But in both cases, if you're growing seed in a community garden on a bit bigger scale, the real seeds have got a a design for a winnowing machine on their website. It's called a zigzag cleaner, and it's absolutely fantastic for cleaning seed. And so if you've got a kind of a community workshop as well, I mean, the Cultivate in Newtown workshop made our little seed cleaner for us, and also ditto the Wales Seed Hub. We've made a whole set of sieves for ourselves with mesh, and there's if you look on our Facebook page, there's a video of how to make these sieves, and we're producing a guide of where to get the different metals from and which are good for which seeds. So if you are doing it on a slightly larger scale and have got a workshop and want to have a project, then that's great.
Brilliant. Yeah, and we'll try and share some of those links in our sort of follow-up to this one as well, which is brilliant. So from me to you, Sue, thank you very much for imparting some of your knowledge and your enthusiasm around it. I think we are all enthused, and we'll give a bit more a go, certainly in my case. Try a bit harder to spend a bit more time doing it and play around and not be scared to play around, I think is the message I got as well. It's good to just get enthused around it. But thank you all for joining. A great bunch of you here this evening. I know we're all really busy, but it's great to have you on board as these ones, and we do them every month so that the contents change obviously each month. The next one, I believe, it is around carbon footprinting actually for market gardeners. So we've been working with an organisation called Farm Carbon, I think. I'm guessing slightly now, sorry, ad-libbing a bit, but they have helped us, or we've helped them develop a specific carbon monitoring capture toolkit for market gardens, and we're looking at replicating that into more of the community garden sector, just knowing that we all know that we're doing some great stuff in the main, but having a bit of methodology to help us prove that to some of our funders and our supporters and our communities is beneficial. So that's at the beginning of December. And then just for your interest, and we'll be sharing it across our membership, the one in January, we're creating a new 3 to 5 year strategy for social farms and gardens. We've done some sort of one-to-one consultations with our members, and we'll be putting some specific questions out there. But in January, we'd like to host one of these member sessions specifically around that. So we'll sort of share the draft, and we want to get some honest and open feedback from our members that obviously that's who we're there to support. So that'll be the January one, and then we try and keep a 3 to 4 month rolling program, and we publicize them through our newsletters and on our social media pages and stuff. So thank you very much, Sue. It'll take us only a few days, I would hope, to sort of share the presentation with you, and I'll try and we'll work out how we do the recording. I don't know, but I'm assuming, Steve and I assume, this will end up on our YouTube channel page that we've got, and it'll be there for prosperity, if you like, longevity, to have a look through. So thank you very much. Enjoy your dark now Thursday evening, and have a good weekend all. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Sue. Thank you.
Much appreciated.